morning, everyone. So now we'll discuss about role of endoscopic spine surgery in spinal infections. So we'll straight away start with a case. It's a 70-year-old male with severe intractable back pain. I mean, he doesn't have any neurological deficit, but large epidural abscess and an impending neurology. So this is the patients we are talking about. Now, the patients don't have early discitis, they have severe epidural compression, and you don't intervene in time, they might land up in neurological deficits. So here you are always in a dilemma. Should I go with a CT-guided biopsy? Because that's always the first option. I mean, it's still a first option for me in early discitis. Now, do we want to offer a fusion or decompression in this patient? That's also a dilemma because patients are not ready in this case, but they do have severe back pain and neurological symptoms. And if you don't treat them early, they might land up in a neurology. This is another patient, 68-year-old male with severe disabling back pain and also radicular pain because of a psoas abscess and an epidural abscess as well. So these patients are symptomatically very bad, and in these patients, the CT-guided biopsy symptoms don't go away. So you're always, if you don't treat them in time, they might land up in worsening neurology. So this is the patients, you can easily treat them with endoscopic under local anesthesia and drain this abscess as well as curate the abscess and give them symptomatic relief as well as treat the infection at the same time. So what is the, incidence of inconclusive results due to lack of adequate sample with the CT-guided biopsy is about 36 to 40%, and that's literature evidence from the literature study. And there is no symptomatic relief to the patient with a CT-guided biopsy in these patients. Endoscopic debridement gives adequate tissue sample under direct visualization. Abscess drainage and debridement also helps in symptomatic relief to the patient. So even now, early discitis, my first option is still CT-guided biopsy, but I have reserved this option for those borderline patients. If you don't intervene in time, they might land up in neurological deficit. And so as I told you, the CT-guided biopsy is still the gold standard for early onset discitis, but I'll show you one example. This child, 15-year-old child, had suspected discitis. The biopsy was done, CT-guided biopsy was done twice. First report was pyogenic discitis with pseudomonas, and the second came to be tuberculosis. Still, the patient did not respond. The third biopsy in this child was lymphoma, and he didn't respond to chemotherapy. So CT-guided biopsy does have false positive or results. That's where the role of endoscopy comes in patients with severe symptomatic discitis with impending neurology. Patients who have deficit and who have deformity, those are definitely candidates for fusion. So the surgical indication was intractable back pain and worsening leg pain. MRI showed single-level discitis and epidural spinal compression, psoas abscess or paravertebral abscess, and the goal of surgery was to confirm the pathogen, biopsy, drain the abscess, and curate the lesion. The technique is very simple. It doesn't have any learning curve. A surgeon with average experience can easily do it. You just put a guide wire under the CM control in AP and lateral views, and you can put the dilators and the endoscope easily. So any average surgeon can do this technique. The abscess is drained in front of your vision. The patient immediately has symptomatic relief. Can be done in thoracic lumbar, even thoracic lesion and lumbar lesions very comfortably. Paravertebral epidural abscess was drained, focal tissues were debrided, sclerotic bone was removed endoscopically and done under local anesthesia with sedation. The patient is awake and without any postoperative complication. We recently had a series which we had published in Asian Spine Journal. We had 18 patients at that time. Now we have about more than 60 patients where early discitis with impending epidural compression, we have done endoscopic debridement and sent the sample. Most of the patients had tuberculosis, but recently we also had a rise in gram-negative infections in patients with diabetes and elderly patients with chronic kidney disease or other comorbidities. So this was the previous patient which we had shown, severe disabling back pain with discitis and psoas abscess, complete relief after endoscopic debridement and decompression. Another female patient, and psoas abscess, discitis, impending neurology, and relief after endoscopic debridement and decompression. So the advantage, the rate of secondary surgical intervention can be reduced with adequate debridement and adequate chemotherapy. The duration of antibiotic therapy Whether the anticox treatment, can it be decreased with this technique, still remains a question. We don't know that. It can be an effective tool for treatment of elderly patients, as it can be done under local anesthesia with lot of comorbidities. Most of the patients with discitis have diabetes or end-stage renal disease. So in these patients, it works well. It has got less, works much, the diagnosis rate is much better than CT guided biopsy because it's done by you and the decompression is done in front of your eyes. Debridement of necrotic tissue is done under direct vision. Extensive anterior as well as posterior spinal decompression can be avoided. The technique can be effective tool in armamentarium of a spine surgeon to treat infective tubercular spondylodiscitis without deformity or neurological involvement. This is the article we published about a couple of years back. Thank you.